It is fight or flight on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. Bet you we won't need reverse lights on the tank that is the crew of Implicit Bias Radio. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. We've got the crew. We've got plenty of whiskey. So let's get to it. This week, we're inviting you to actually ponder a conundrum with us. It's a question that actually touches every single one of us. Whether you're young or old, steadfast or searching, it's a question that churns quietly beneath our daily actions, our restless nights, our dreams of the future. Why do we so often choose anxiety over trust? Why do we worry rather than think about the hope and the goodness that actually God has promised us? At the core of our Catholic or Christian faith lies an invitation, repeated again and again throughout Scripture. Those words, do not be afraid. From the angel's words to Mary at the Annunciation, to Christ's reassurance to his disciples on stormy waters, that message has always been one of courage, hope, and trust in the goodness that lies ahead. Yet despite the divine assurances, we find ourselves, perhaps now, maybe even more than ever, handcuffed by anxiety. Think about the subtle ways that we sometimes unconsciously actually choose that. We worry about tomorrow. We obsess about outcomes we can't control. We allow the fear of losing what we love to overshadow the joy of just simply receiving each day, each gift that we have. In a world saturated with news cycles of crisis, social media echo chambers of comparison, anxiety actually sometimes feels natural and almost responsible. Something that we hold on to as if it could shield us from the unknown. But that's when we have to actually pause for a second and ask, is that truly the path that God intends for us? Our faith teaches that anxiety at its root is often a symptom of misplaced trust. We err in believing that our well-being hinges solely on our own efforts or on the shifting tides of the world, rather than on the unwavering goodness of our Creator. Trust in God is the root of all hope. When we choose anxiety, we are, in a sense, choosing to trust our fears more than trusting in God, a quiet turning away from the promise that all things work together for good for those who love God. The saints, our companions and our guides in this, understood this premise well. St. Francis de Sales, who himself struggled with deep anxiety in his youth, wrote, and I quote, "Have no fear for what tomorrow may bring. The same loving God who cares for you today will care for you tomorrow and every day." His words are not naive optimism, but rather hard-won wisdom rooted in surrender. A surrender that's not resignation, but an active, courageous entrustment of our lives to the Holy One. So how do we shift from anxiety to hope? How can we respond to God's invitation not to fear, but to believe in the good that's yet to come? First, we have to cultivate the habit of remembrance. God is not distant from us, but rather he's one who's present in every single moment. When anxiety looms, remember, God took care of us in the past when what seemed impossible became possible. The Eucharist itself is an act of remembrance, a continual return to the ultimate good that entered our world in Christ. Second, we're called to practice gratitude. Gratitude is the antidote to anxiety. It turns our eyes from what we lack to what we have received. If we're thankful, we root ourselves in the reality of God's providence, trusting that the giver who has blessed us before won't abandon us now or in the future. Third, and unfortunately, often most difficult, we have to learn to wait. Wait in hope. The Catholic virtue of hope is not just wishful thinking. It's a confident expectation that, yeah, God's got this. This is not always easy, especially when we walk through suffering or uncertainty. Yet, even then, hope remains possible, not because we deny the reality of pain, but because we believe that no sorrow is wasted and that every cross, just like the one Christ had to carry, will give us a way to resurrection. Lastly, know this. We're not in this alone. We're part of a community, a church that walks together, prays together, and supports one another in faith. Remember, anxiety is not our destiny. Each day, we get to choose trust over fear, to believe in the good that is to come rather than the dread of what might be. There's no dread, however, just so you know, here in the TSPL, the Top Secret Podcast Lair. Why? It's because we've got whiskey, and it's not donkey whiskey. There's no hesitancy, just the stories you won't get in the lamestream media. Our conservative, Christian, Cajun faith can just do that. It's that spirit that is your Implicit Bias Radio. Stick around. It is weekly whiskey time on this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio, and the crew, we got multiple members of the crew here this week, including a very special guest who's going to bring us our weekly whiskey for, obviously, this week. Don't forget, if you are looking to buy your fine spirits, go get it from the Implicit Bias Liquor Collective. You heard the little bump right before we came in. In Opelousas, you can go to Benny's. Here in Lafayette, you can go to Champagne's Market in Carencro. You can go to Nunu's Markets, Youngsville, Scott, Milton, Maurice. They're going to provide you with all those opportunities, and we are going to bring you a very special bottle during this week's Weekly Whiskey segment from yet another location where you can find a special whiskey. That being said, let me introduce you to the crew here with us this week in the Mr. Lester's Top Secret Podcast Lair. Let's start with Caleb. Caleb, you didn't sound like you were actually at work today, but you were working, correct?
Yeah, so, one of the things about owning property and wanting to build a house on is there's work to be done. So today I was out working I think it's a 10-ton excavator, trying to build my driveway up, get things going, work on irrigation, jump off that, do some bush hogging, jump on a little dozer, do some dozer work. So I rinsed off with a sink.
It works. It works. Look, if that's the vibe you go for because you got callus on your hands, just like most working people in this world, that's not a bad place to be.
It was a good day because throughout the entire process, when I went to load up the excavator at the end of it, I loaded it up, got it all ready, and God talked to me and he said, Caleb, I've been trying to talk to you all day. You just make too much noise to listen.
I'd love to say that you're alone in that there are so many of us who have just trouble just being quiet and letting him talk.
And we had a great conversation the rest of the way here.
Outstanding. Let's go to the bar. Maybe we'll hear more of your conversation, Caleb, in just a few minutes. But at the bar, let me introduce you to the familiar face first. He is Jonathan Broussard of Industrial Fabrication Services. Jonathan, it is beautiful to have you back here in the Mr. Lester's TSPL.
It's great to be back. It seems like it's been a while. I was asking if furniture disappeared in between the last time and the time It
hasn't been that long.
Maybe it's just the speed of summer that's throwing me off here.
It could be the speed of summer. It could be the chaos, as we said, of 2025. I mean, it could be a lot.
Amen. And either way, it's awesome to be here.
Hey, just good to be here for another day, right?
And another drink.
There you go. Speaking of the weekly whiskey, the man who's bringing us the weekly whiskey, Tim Metcalf, joining us. Tim is the proprietor of, Tim, you've got multiple businesses, Dino's, right? But really what brings you here this week with us is the weekly whiskey. You've got Marcello's now for a while.
Wine shop, right. I'm partners with Kyle Kellner, CPA, and everybody knows Dustin Poirier.
Yeah.
So,
So outstanding to have you here with us. And Caleb, you actually have that bottle. I didn't even get to look at it. I just had the beauty of getting to taste it. So Tim, I'm going to ask you about it in a second, but I'm curious, Caleb, why are you putting it away?
Well, because it can reside with me for the rest of the show.
Oh, it can reside with you for the rest of the show. Okay. Yeah. So Tim, if you would, this is a rye 3 barrel pick that's only available, obviously, at Marcello's. Because when you do a pick, that you're the only store that has this particular bottle.
Right.
Were you involved in the picking of this particular bottle?
I was actually.
So tell us about the process, if you would.
Well, they brought us 4 examples, but the rye 3 is unique in that they take 3 different rye whiskeys and blend them and put them in rum barrels. So they store them in rum barrels for 4 years and then take it out and put it in a toasted barrel for another year to give you that taste you're getting.
Yeah.
The nose is rye. You get
the beautiful pepper. Yep. You get the beautiful pepper on it.
Right.
You get that
right.
That baking spice.
And I'll let you.
No. I'm saying that's some of what I get.
The toasted, I get like roasted marshmallows, dark chocolate. Some people get mint. I haven't found that yet, but yeah.
There are some distillates, and for me, it's Old Forester.
Okay.
Pretty much anything that Old Forester puts out, even I've had this on the birthday bourbon, on the back end of the palate, I get spearmint.
Okay.
And I'm not a huge fan of spearmint in my whiskey, but that's just what I get.
Right.
This one, and I've had some rye 3s before.
Right.
I've never gotten that from a rye 3. And rye, particularly with us, is a sweet spot. Caleb, do you want to expound upon that?
Yeah. So on the nose, I literally just wrote down spicy caramel because I don't know how else to explain it. It's not cinnamon. It's not cayenne. I don't know what it is. Definitely not jalapeno. It's just a spicy caramel. And then as I started nose upping my glass more and more, I got heavy vanilla, heavy chocolate. And then I realized what I was thinking of. You remember around Easter time?
Here we go.
Russell Stover's or whatever they are, they come out with the little marshmallows, and it's the chocolate covered marshmallow eggs.
But they had to be melted from
Yes.
your pocket. I know where you're going.
Like the warm, where they're just warm enough and they have like that kind of smoky smell to them. That is what I get on the nose. And then when I took my first test, like first taste, sorry, I got real vanilla, not like beaver excrement, other stuff.
No,
whatever
you
it's
got
called.
like Mexican vanilla.
Yeah, Mexican vanilla.
Yeah, and for those who don't get that joke, fake vanilla is at one time actually made from a gland in a beaver's rear end.
backside.
That's.
I was trying to remember what
please
it's called, but
don't
it
believe us on
escapes
this.
me right now.
Yeah.
Please don't believe us on this.
Yeah,
But
look
that's
it
the
up.
truth.
So I get real vanilla, then I get like a smoky s'more, and then French vanilla ice cream with warm caramel syrup on top. Like homemade, make it at your house on the hand crank, not the electric one that's cheating, the hand crank ice cream maker with warm caramel syrup on top. This would be delicious with like not banana pudding, bread pudding.
Oh.
This would be just phenomenal with it. It would be great with cheesecake. This is almost sweet enough to the point where it would be a dessert.
If you took this to make a bourbon sauce for bread pudding,
Dude,
I can only imagine where this would land with that, because it does. You could almost cut back on the sugar
you absolutely
to make
could.
the sauce,
Absolutely could.
because
yeah.
you've got just a natural sweetness to this that to me is incredibly well balanced.
It's viscous enough. It hangs around just long enough. Like, well done, Tim. Well done. Y'all chose a beautiful bottle.
Jonathan, what are you thinking here?
What am I thinking? I'm calling it today. I'm no longer saying I'm not a rye guy.
Okay, so we have to talk about this, because there are so many people in the whiskey world who say, "Oh, I'm a bourbon drinker. I don't drink rye."
So for me on the rise, it's usually the first bit of spice when you drink straight bourbons for so long, and then you hit a rye. That first bite of spice you get in the rye always kind of threw me off, and it was a little bit much. But this is not like that. I get the marshmallow, and originally on the scent, I get some of the fireball smell.
You get just a little
A
cinnamon
little bit of cinnamon
on the nose. I can get that.
A good amount of sweet. And on the taste, is similar to that. It's kind of like the old small Red Hots, the little bitty ones.
Yeah.
Like you would have soaked them in a soft drink or something, and it would have mellowed out a little bit. It's really good, and I really like this one.
So you've said some things there that really jumped out at me. So first of all, Caleb, I have not looked at the bottle. I'm going to take a wild guess. The proof on this is between 112 and 120-ish, I think.
126 too.
I was going to say 125 between those two. Okay, the beauty of this is it doesn't drink like 126. If you would have told someone this is 126 proof, 63% alcohol by volume and change, if you just
average
gave it to
person's
somebody,
gonna
they
say
tell you,
no,
no way.
no.
No way. This spoils you. Is there an age statement on this, Caleb? Don't tell me what it is if
There's
there is.
not.
Okay.
There's not.
It's one of the things that we love about rye. So, Jonathan, when people say, I'm not a rye drinker, I'm a bourbon drinker, what we typically find is this. Young ryes, but when you get to that 6-year-ish mark, sometimes you get there at 5, sometimes it takes 7, but usually that 6-year mark is kind of the sweet spot, and you start getting flavors like this. If I served this to you and hadn't told you it was a rye, but told you it was a bourbon, would you have known any different?
I would not.
That-
and something he said about the aging of different barrels makes sense to what you're saying.
Yeah, Tim, you want to add to that?
Yeah, the rum cask. I think we're getting a lot of sweetness
Yeah.
and flavor from that. And then the toasted finish, it's just amazing. Because it doesn't finish like a traditional rye either.
No.
Traditional ryes fall off real fast. And they just leave you kind of thirsty and like, whoa, it's a little bit strange. And this one's just smooth and It'll change your mind. If you're not a rye drinker, you will be after that. I promise you.
Oh, I could not agree with you more. This is one of those that will change the game for people who say, I don't drink rye. This, to me, is one of those that will change the game for people who say, I don't drink high proof whiskey. I like whiskey at 90 to 100 proof and max out at 100. This will completely change that.
I don't want them to want. They stay at the 80s and 90s, because when you start going off the stuff
Pushes
I
the
like,
price point's too high for you, right?
then they start going off the stuff I want, and then it gets harder to find. So you'll stay down there, stay at 80 and 90. I'll keep up.
Stay in your
120s.
lane, and you'll get you right.
Well, and this is the sad
Selfish.
thing. This is the sad thing and the beautiful thing about a pick like this. You're only going to find this pick at one place.
right.
You're never going to find this bottle again. So you got to go get it if you don't
You
want
got
to
to
miss
buy
it.
two.
Yeah,
buy
yeah,
one to drink and one to save. And
Well,
for
we
special
have
occasions.
the rule. If I have one, I have none.
Right.
If I have two, I have one to drink and one for the collection.
Right.
So I'm absolutely with you on if I have one, I have none. So it is time for us to dive into number one, the Morse Whiskey Rating Code.
Okay.
And I'll explain that in a second. And we're going to play What Would You Pay? Now, Tim, you know what this bottle costs.
Correct.
What we are going to do here in the Mr. Lester's TSPL is we are going to take basically a guess at what we would pay for the liquid that's in the bottle.
Okay.
And whoever's closest gets to win the What Would You Pay championship belt chain.
All right. All right.
But the premise of it is this, is that there are plenty of bottles out there where people are like, oh, I paid $180 for this, but the liquid might not be as
Might
good
not
as
be worth
some, it might not be worth
They
that.
could
Or,
be buying on secondary markets.
Yeah.
You're always good.
or they're buying just on reputation. They're not necessarily buying
lot of
on what's new and what's being done to make whiskey special in certain places. So that's why we play the What Would You Pay championship belt chain presented by Box Drop of Lafayette. And Mike Trammell's going to come in next segment and we'll get him in and he'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to let Mike taste this. Mike's favorite thing to call a bottle of whiskey is donkey whiskey. If he does, I'm going to throw one of these rock heavy tumblers at him.
Okay.
Because I don't think this lands there. So let's start with the Morse Whiskey Rating Code. The Morse Whiskey Rating Code is this. Red, I wouldn't drink it even if it was free.
Okay.
Yellow, I would only drink it if it was free. Green, I would buy this. Blue, this is special. I want to seek this out. I need to find this. I've got to have it on my bar. I've got to have a bottle so that when there is that special occasion and I've got people who like whiskey, who like bourbon, who like rye, I can put this in front of them and be like, hey, we've got something that you're not going to get anywhere else. So let's start with Jonathan at the bar. Jonathan, where do you rate this on the Morse Whiskey Rating Code? And what would you pay?
I rate this as an opportunity to get another shelf on my cabinet and start with the rise. So
Okay.
it's a blue. It's definitely a blue for me. And this good, I'm gonna say 120.
120. Okay. All right. So I'll go next because I don't always get to play for the What Would You Pay championship belt chain. This is absolutely a blue. It has that beautiful, it is a caramel bomb, as people talk about certain whiskeys and bourbons. You get that sip, and it is like someone dissolved a really big, beautiful caramel with maybe even a little bit of graham cracker in there. Caleb brought out the s'more. You get a little bit of that toasted marshmallow at 126 proof. It doesn't drink hot at all. Like you said, Tim, it sits in the back of the palate. It's got legs. It's viscous. It's just oily enough. This is a blue. There's no doubt this is a blue. This rates as high as I could rate it. It rates up there with some bottles that I have never seen for sale, but got to try a pour of at times. That's where this rates for me. What would I pay? You got me on the 120 because that's kind of what I was thinking, Jonathan. So I'm gonna go 125. I mean, I'm thinking, I don't have an age on this. It's been aged in multiple barrels, so it's double finished. It's got the rum cask finish. It's got the toasted barrel finish. That typically adds to the cost of the barrel. But judging by the liquid, I will say this: I have paid more for bottles that don't drink this well. Caleb?
We're getting too good at this. I had to line through my price. God, dog it. Well, so it's a blue. I tried not to, I didn't want to give it a blue because one, Tim's sitting right there. So I went back.
Yeah,
and
we're
looked-
not pandering on this.
Yeah,
Trust me. If
I went
we were
back and looked
pandering,
through
we'd
my
tell you.
notes. I looked at my notes and I was like, oh man, I haven't been given a blue recently because I thought I gave too many. And this is definitely a blue. Now I got to reassess what I want to. I can't go 126. So we're going to go 134.99.
134.99. All right. Normally we would ask Walker, but I completely forgot to offer Walker a glass. Walker, do you want a glass?
I'm good. No, thank you.
What
What
if I
happened to you? Are you
I'm
not
good.
drinking anymore?
Not during the week. I try not to.
what if,
The weekends have gotten that bad.
No,
what if I take a big swig and then slowly pour it into your
I'll pass.
Okay.
All right, so
Try.
Walker won't get to taste this one. That's okay. So we've got a unanimous blue. Tim, we know you'd probably rate this a blue. You were engaged in the pick of this. There's a reason why you selected it, and we understand why. So you get to settle the bet now. For the what would you pay championship belt chain, and this is not like the price is right. If you go over, you don't get it. It's closest to the hole.
Okay.
So 110, 125, or 120, 125, 134.
99, 134.99.
Yeah.
So it's a bargain. It's a blue. It's under $90. So $89.99.
Wow.
At the store.
Shut the door.
I'm telling you, it's a sleeper. We're gonna do some promo on it tomorrow. You need to come get one.
So this will air on KPEL Radio. So for those who are listening, they know that we pre-record the show.
Saturday.
This will air Saturday. Yeah, just one of the
This Saturday.
This correct. This coming Saturday. So what's today?
Come see me. Today's Thursday.
Yeah, today's
Wednesday.
Today's
Update.
Wednesday, and the date of today is what?
Sixth.
The 6th.
6th.
So the 9th, Saturday the 9th, this will air. Yeah.
You made it really complicated.
I can't count.
So
What can I say?
no. But so I'll make every effort to be at the store.
Okay.
Come see me. We'll talk about it. We have an open bottle. You can try it before you buy it. I can't make you a better deal.
There you go.
It's a blue whiskey. We've
Yep.
all agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. It's under the price point everybody hit.
Way under.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna let you guys try it before you buy it, and we can talk about it.
And look, if you try this, trust me, you're going to buy it. You are absolutely
I
going to buy
I
it.
bought a barrel of it.
So, Tim, I do need to ask one question before we wrap up the weekly whiskey segment because we know where this went. It's a question that when you mentioned Dustin, a lot of people, obviously, Dustin in the news, Dustin retiring just a couple weeks ago officially. Now he's going to a commentating role, I believe. I think I saw on social media.
He'll be in Chicago, not this weekend, but next.
So my question is this.
319.
How did that relationship start? How did you meet Dustin?
Me and Dustin?
Yeah.
I was following him loosely. My business partner, Cody McCowan, first guy to bring kettlebells and extreme training to Lafayette, Louisiana. So we started a strength and conditioning course for fighters.
Okay.
Through Tim Crater. And we had
Yeah.
boxers. We had Mason Menard there. We had all the fighters coming up. Albert Steinbeck, Dustin Poirier, Tim Crater. All the guys were there. Strength and conditioning. And watching Dustin, he never cut corners. So I was the oldest guy in the class. I never cut corners. I just don't do that in life. So if you had to do 100 chin-ups, some guys would drop at 80 and tell me they did 100. Always on time, always did his workouts. Watched him fight. He fought like he worked out. He was just a machine. He was not the most athletic guy in the class. He was not the most gifted guy in class, but he was the hardest worker in class. So he comes in one day, we bonded, and he's like, "Hey, I'm not working out. Just his mind somewhere else." I'm like, "Dustin, what's the deal? I want to turn professional fighter, but I have to work. And if I want to be a pro fighter, I need to be a pro fighter only."
Yeah.
Okay. And my wife's in school. I'm very frugal. I'm like, what would it take? Me and Cody sit him down, like, what would it take for you to go a year? And it was, I don't know, $20,000. We raised it. There's 4 or 5 of us business guys wrote checks and raised it. And we just been following him since. And just, I've been to 90% of his fights.
Yeah.
Just
I mean, we've seen
just
you
become-
on the pay-per-views at pretty much every time we've watched
yeah.
Dustin.
No,
we always see you
I'm blessed
there.
to get down there and get in the ring a few times. And so we've just, it started off that I was his mentor, but I've learned as much from that young man as he's learned from me. He just, he refreshes my being, what it means to be a man, what it means to give back to the community.
Yeah.
Just because you're a star doesn't mean you have to act like one.
I think
He's still Dustin Poirier from Lafayette, Louisiana.
and I think that's one of the things that makes our community special
Oh, absolutely.
is that we have a lot of people who have done a lot of really big things.
Right.
And people who are from here don't forget where they came. They don't forget. Look,
No.
I put on my pants just like everybody else. I go to work just like everybody else. Just what I do. For some reason, people think it's special and people honor that.
Right. It's we have this conversation like, we both done well. We can live anywhere in the world. We both choose to live in Lafayette, Louisiana for a reason. The people and the food.
Yeah, well, no doubt the food.
Yeah. But no, the people. It really is. And he's still the same Dustin Poirier I knew when he was an amateur fighter. So.
That's outstanding. And I thank you for telling us that story and
Yeah,
sharing that
absolutely.
with us.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people were kind of curious about it because we do always see you. People know you in the community.
Right.
So
Right.
being able to tell that story, I think gives a lot of people a lot of insight as to sometimes what it takes to make that dream come true if that's what you're willing to chase and you're willing to do it the right way.
The thing with Dustin, and I kept trying to get him to have a plan B. He said, my plan B is I'll probably go to jail because my fighting rage is within me. As younger, he was in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
That fighting rage was within him. He had to find a release for it, and the octagon was the release. Had he not made it in the octagon, that fighting rage was going to come out.
Yeah.
So,
Goosebumps. Tim,
Yeah.
cheers. Thank you for bringing this bottle of Rye 3 because we are going to partake of more of this.
Absolutely.
This is absolutely fantastic. If you would like to stick around, we're going to rotate some people in, but you're more than welcome to stay for the evening and we can rotate you back in and back out because we're going to dive into some of the stories where there might be some fight or flight going on in this country. And in the past week, the stories that we just kept sending out, everything from an NFL player being arrested in California for his legal firearms anywhere else.
charges, yeah.
Correct, on weapons charges, to the fact that there are stories we have been harping on for the last 5 years here on the show that the rest of the country is now finding out about documentation being fraudulently created and basically sedition against the United States government being committed, allegedly. Those investigations and where those consequences are going to bring people, maybe to Florida instead of DC. There's a lot going on. I can't wait to talk about that, including the fact that an attempted alleged assassin just had documents sealed because the evidence allegedly would perhaps put national security at risk. That's all coming your way on more Implicit Bias Radio. Chickens will be coming home to roost, Bobby Boucher. Well, maybe not Bobby Boucher, maybe like Brennan, Clapper, Comey, those names. This is Implicit Bias Radio. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. And yeah, it's time for maybe a fight or some flight for some people in Washington, D.C. Let me introduce you to the crew that we've got here in the Mr. Lester's Top Secret Podcast lair. Let's start at the bar. Jonathan Broussard, it is great to have you. Jonathan, you gave it a blue. Is it still a blue? Are you on your third, fourth, fifth pour? What are we looking at here with this Rye 3 from Marcello's?
Second pour, and is there a different haze of blue that I could call it?
Nope.
It's really good.
There is not a different haze of blue. There is one sitting next to you. We'll get to him in a second. We're going to jump, though, to the Rustic Renegade. Caleb, now that you've had an opportunity to let it sit through a break, what are you thinking?
This one didn't sit. This is a brand new glass.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
So still a blue, still phenomenal. I will be there Saturday. I will figure, actually, yeah, I'll try to be there Saturday. I'll give it my all.
Now comes the big test. Mike Trammell. Box Drop Lafayette, Clear Springs Water, donkey whiskey, Mike, because that's what you always say. Oh, I'm always here for donkey whiskey.
Well, Tim's sitting in the corner right there.
Look, we don't pander. We don't pander. I mean,
I'm kind of. Is Dustin in the other room?
no,
Or like-
Dustin is not here. We would love to have Dustin come in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's in the shadows waiting.
Yeah.
Is that why y'all are so nervous? Like y'all scared to not say a blue?
I tried not to, man. I was trying to convince myself otherwise.
So you want me to try? Partake?
I want you to partake. I mean, you've had that glass way too long to have not had a sip already. Don't give me that.
So I got a call late last night to come in. Obviously, I wasn't supposed to be on this show.
Oh, I know where this is going.
Because Tim, whenever they invite me on the show, it usually, I mean, we're in some reds, like some desperate Mad Dog 2020 kind of stuff. But this is good. I really liked it.
Oh, Mikey likes it.
This is Rye 3.
This is
Yep.
Rye 3, 126 proof,
Okay.
rum cask, then toasted barrel finish. So double finish.
Made this at your house?
Yeah.
Very good. It's I really like on the palate. It's smooth, very smooth. I mean, I'm big on aftertaste, and this really goes down good. I'm not saying it because Tim's right there, but really good. I really enjoy this. This is a good one.
Very smooth, long finish. Couldn't
Very
agree more.
smooth.
Okay. Speaking of long finish, the story that we have to dive into here, because it is really, 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 really important, is a story that we have talked about on this show basically since we started back in 2020. It's one of the stories that really was the reason why we started this show, because the information for this story was out there, but no one was telling it. No one was publicizing, hey, this information that people are getting might be bad info. The old school media, CBS, ABC, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, right? All the terrible news outlets. And I say news very, very loosely. They were all saying the same thing. Donald Trump colluded with Russia in the 2016 election. But there was documentation, .gov documentation, that there were meetings in the Oval Office, that there was fabrication of evidence, that the whole story came from his competitor's campaign and was approved.
Sorry.
Oh, you.
I coughed.
By the way, Caleb is not suicidal.
No.
Caleb does not want to make a bad decision that is a long-term answer to a short-term problem.
Not at all.
Not at all. Anyway, that information was out there, and we've been sitting on it. It's been, dear Lord, 7 years, because
Well,
really a lot of it was out there around 2018.
And it's not we've been sitting on it.
Correct.
Our government's been sitting on it.
Which makes you start to wonder, because in the last week, Tulsi Gabbard came out and said, hey, here's the documentation. Here's the proof that evidence wasn't just falsified. Evidence was created. Please don't believe us on this. Please go look up Tulsi Gabbard, DNI, evidence, sedition, collusion. She lays it out.
And it's not just the left that hid this.
Oh, correct.
This is, when I say the government, I mean the United States government. Both sides of whatever fence that exists, people that are heavily invested in making sure they keep their job for the next 20-something years so they can retire as multimillionaires when they got in with nothing to their name. The people betrothed to the imaginary king that they want to serve of the dollar. Those people hid truth from you, the American taxpayer and the American citizen.
Like Caleb said, both sides of the aisle. One of which is now a deceased former senator who hand-delivered some of this information. Please don't believe us on this. Hand-delivered it. He was a Republican. This was proof that the uniparty is a thing. It's why we don't necessarily pick one party. We tell you, guess what? It's all one big club, and we ain't in it. Okay, at the bar. I'm curious, because this is the big question. We are now hearing grand juries are being impaneled in this, which starts to bring about that A word, accountability. What do you think? You think we're going to see it?
I would hope so. But I have my suspicions about it. A lot of these things get washed out by other fabricated stories and just blend into the fabric of day-to-day event. I would love to see someone at a higher ranking, if you will, be held accountable, made to answer for their actions.
Trammell, I'm curious as to what you're thinking too. And Jonathan, we'll come back to you. I want you to finish that thought.
But I mean, I think this is just a small part of what is hidden from us, the taxpayer and the regular person. I really think the government, I mean, there's so much out there that it's just, it's not given all to the proper channels. What else is out there that we don't know?
Well, I'll give you where this might have actually really started. So the whole Russia collusion stemmed from, remember this, because this is going to be the things that people forget. It stemmed from an alleged hack of the Democratic National Committee server in Washington, D.C. We know from WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, who had to leave the country and couldn't come into the United States forever and was in hiding in the Colombian embassy in the UK for years, right? We know from WikiLeaks that WikiLeaks had all those emails and that information because of a whistleblower. Does anybody remember the name of a very suspicious murder in Washington, D.C.? Anybody remember the young Democratic National Committee staffer who died mysteriously, an alleged robbery, where the robbers shot him in the back, never took his stuff, left money in his wallet, all his credit cards, and a multi-$1,000 watch on his wrist? Anybody remember that young man's name?
Wasn't it in his apartment?
It was right
that on the
outside
street?
in the street. By the way, he was alive when he got to the hospital, and some really interesting people paid him a visit at the hospital, and he never came out. And he was, according to doctors, please don't believe us, stable. His name was Seth Rich. This is how far back this could go. Do I have definitive proof? Here's what we know. What we know is that server wasn't hacked. That was the start for the Russia collusion story. What we know is that the speed rates to download everything off of that server were too fast to be hacked. It had to be a thumb drive or an alternative drive, which means it was somebody on the inside. And what we know is that those emails that came out of that server that WikiLeaks got a hold of start to connect lots of dots. And now, here's the really crazy thing that we know. Because, again, Tulsi Gabbard came out and said it. Please don't believe us on this. The story about WMDs in Iraq that sent us to war, take a guess who was a member of the group that put the intelligence assessment together. Clapper was on the very same group. And according to Gabbard, Clapper admitted to creating something that wasn't there. Close quote. Please don't believe us on this. So does it not seem, Trammell, like now maybe all of this is starting to come together?
But we always, it seems like we find this way years later. I mean, why?
Okay. Walker's giving me the 1 minute finger. We're going to have to maybe continue this into the next segment. To me, here's why. Because when somebody does something that egregious, eventually what they do is they make the cover up worse than the crime, which is why we are now looking at grand juries being impaneled, not in DC. They're being impaneled where?
Florida.
In Florida. Because the raid on Mar-a-Lago was another act in continuance of the conspiracy, which keeps it all together. You keep it all together after this break. Wrapping up hour one on this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio, I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon, and Caleb, you're not going to believe this.
Okay.
Talk to Chef Willie down at Mr. Lester's
Oh,
Steakhouse.
snap.
Gentleman at the bar, Jonathan Broussard, Mike the Drip Trammell. I would like y'all to take a guess at what Chef Willie's August whiskey special is at Mr. Lester's Steakhouse.
Wow.
Anybody want to guess?
Just out of the blue?
Just out of the blue.
Like amount or what it actually is?
Amount. No, amount. What's right?
$5 shots.
Too high.
I don't know.
Wrong.
$5 flights.
Wrong. Caleb,
Is he still at $1?
if you go in and say you want an implicit bias pour, your
$1?
first pour is $1, Bob. $1.
Someone take that man fishing. Like, he needs time on the water or something to get his head back right.
So go to Mr. Lester's, tell him you want the implicit bias pour. Your first pour is $1.
You know what's crazy about that?
That it's $1?
Besides that, if it's the pour that they normally give me and you and
Oh, it's a 4-finger pour. Yeah, it's about 3
a
pours.
vertical. It's a vertical hand pour. Like, they are liberal with that too.
Like $1?
Yes.
100 pennies?
Yes,
Is this what we're talking
100
about?
pennies. Yes.
20 nickels?
Yep.
Like,
That's it?
4 quarters. 10 dimes.
Wow.
2 50-cent pieces.
Is Chef Willie okay?
Yeah,
I was checking on him earlier.
he is absolutely thrilled for
Well,
people to
we're-
go down there and
we're
tell him
thrilled.
they want the
I got the
implicit
free
bias
sauce
pour.
just now. I was like, there's money in my wallet right now to go out there and have a good time.
Yeah.
Can you bring the ice chest into Mr. Lester and take them with you?
No, you can't do that.
$1?
$1.
It's absurd. It really
It is absolutely absurd, and we love them for it. Okay, so we have to get back to the stories that are shaping things up.
Okay.
We were talking about the fact that grand juries are being impaneled, a grand jury in Florida. Why is Florida as a grand jury important here to the crew? I'm curious as to why do you think that the Department of Justice would want to impanel grand juries in Florida?
Something happened there, something important, something that would be egregious, and it happened to a current president at his home.
Okay,
So you have,
so you think the raid at Mar-a-Lago made it possible?
well, yeah, it made it possible, but you have also people that are tired. Like, when you think about Florida man's pretty crazy. You have people who are tired of the government, tired of government overreach. You have people who are just fed up and they want to be left alone. That's what Florida is full of. I think that that's where you're going to get people who will hunt down and want the truth no matter the cost. Whether it hurt them or hurt someone else, they just want the truth. And I truly think, honestly, that's most of the South.
I would absolutely agree with you. At the bar, any thoughts on Florida versus, because where else might this have been heard normally?
Well, I mean, yeah, outside of D.C. is pretty rare, but it could have been held on the levee in Henderson and still would have been better than
D.C.
D.C.
And
right?
that's the point.
Anytime you can get out of the corrupt city or state, so-called, that would be a great thing.
So here's what you have to remember. A part of this was already tried in Washington, D.C. One of the attorneys who admitted to knowing that the documentation was falsified, handing it over to the FBI as if it was true, while he had a conflict of interest working for Perkins Coie, went to trial in D.C. They had him saying, I did this. It should have been a dead to rights conviction, and the jury threw it out. This is why Florida is important. In Florida, you might actually get a true jury trial, not a political trial, which, by the way, I think is really funny because, Trammell, take a guess what Democrats are saying about this start to a prosecution. You want to take any guess as to what Democrats are calling this?
It's not being held in a fair state.
Not that it's not being held in a fair state, but that the whole thing isn't fair. The whole thing is what? It's just politics.
Are they calling this a witch hunt?
Ah, yes, they are. Yet these are the same people who hauled a former former president and presidential candidate to court how many times? How many times did they try and sue him? How many times did they try and put him in jail?
What did Hillary say? Just let it go.
No, I believe Hillary's quote was, at this point, what difference
That's
does it
right.
make?
What difference does it make?
Yeah. That's the Benghazi quote.
Yeah. All the difference. And you know what? You can call this what you want. You can call it revenge. You can call it vengeance. You can call it justice because that's what needs to happen. I'm ready to see these people tried, measured, and found wanting.
I'm ready to just see them put in front of everybody and have the media tell the truth.
That'll never happen.
Well, they've got to cover a trial. They've got to cover a court case. And if it's put out there as testimony, guess what they've got to do? They actually have to report it. Now, as to whether or not the media is actually working for the media is a whole different story because Tulsi Gabbard's been on a roll. And Tulsi Gabbard not even put this one in the notes, but this just flows in right here too easily. Tulsi Gabbard also told us about something else we've talked about on this show. We thought it might have been dead, but maybe it isn't. Anybody know what CIA program was actually working with the news media? Anybody remember the code name of that operation?
Didn't there a book like To Kill a...
Go ahead, Jonathan.
It's some Mockingbird, right?
It was Project Mockingbird.
Project Mockingbird. Yeah.
Project Mockingbird, please, again, don't believe us, go look this up. Project Mockingbird was the CIA paying media to tell the story they wanted told.
And how far back does this go?
Oh, this goes back to the 50s and 60s.
Because I remember another country probably 10 or 20 years before that had the media feeding propaganda to the public.
Pravda. I mean, back in the heavily Soviet Union.
Did Charlie Chaplin play like a movie about that called The Great Dictator or something?
Something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
Sounds real similar.
So what we have to recognize.
A man with a little mustache did the same
Yep.
thing, right?
Yep. Well, and there's a lot of reporting and writing around Project Mockingbird. We read the book, we talked about the book Chaos on this show. In the book Chaos, it is documented that the CIA was paying alleged journalists, because when you're getting paid by an intelligence agency, you're no longer a journalist. You're just a mouthpiece, right? You're a propagandist. But that the CIA was paying journalists, multiple newspaper writers, to write the stories that they wanted. Please go read this in the book Chaos.
With taxpayer money.
Yes.
That's your money they're using to bribe people to lie to you, and then we reelect them.
Every single time. As the late, great George Carlin said, we said it before, we'll say it again. It's one big club, and we ain't in it. So you've got Project Mockingbird. You've got the media telling you one thing and being paid to do it. You've got bad actors inside the government being paid to create allegedly, false documentation to prosecute a former U.S. president and send him to jail, and to create a false narrative to usurp a duly elected president while he's in office. Please don't believe us on this. Look this up. And if you want to hear more, catch us in hour 2. If, by the way, your market doesn't get hour 2 of Implicit Bias Radio, guess what you should do? Call them, tell them you want hour 2, because hour 2 is always more fun with Implicit Bias. It's always more fun on Implicit Bias Radio when we are in hour 2. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon, and we just have a great crew for you here in the Mr. Lester's TSPL. That's the top secret podcast layer for the uninitiated. Let me introduce you to the crew if you are just jumping in. At the bar, he is Jonathan Broussard of Industrial Fabrication Services. He's on about his 6th pour. You having fun over there, Jonathan?
I am. I'm really enjoying this rye. Yes, you heard it right, rye.
Yeah, you're a rye guy now,
Rye
right?
guy now.
Thanks to the Rye 3 from Marcello's right here in Lafayette, Louisiana, which is where we are based out of. Sitting next to you is Mike Trammell of not just Box Drop, but also of Clear Springs Water. Man, you're here in the blue. You got the green. Like, what are they? Are you the 2-lane green wave now? What?
I don't know about green. I mean,
Well,
I
Box
get a lot
Drop is a green. It's a white and
I thought you
green.
were talking about money. I thought, but
Oh,
bills,
please.
yeah, bills. I pay a lot of bills. I do.
Welcome to life. Yeah, we all got those, but we're glad to have you back, and we're glad that you did not have any donkey whiskey this week.
Yes, I am very, very impressed.
This is
week.
twice in a row.
And it's a rye. I mean, where do you go? Do you go to Marcello's
Correct.
on Saturday, or do you go to get Chef Willie's dollar menu, Mickey D's dollar menu down?
That is not Mickey D's. Don't even compare that.
Well, it's what Mickey
it's-
D's used to be, like the price at least.
the
it's-
dollar menu.
You can't get anything for $1 now,
You have to ask
except for the implicit bias pour.
Yep. Ask
That's
for
the
the
only thing you can get for $1.
ask for the implicit bias pour at Mr. Lester Steakhouse at Cypress Bayou. And yes, your first pour of whiskey is $1.
Do you think Tim will take $1 pour at Marcello's?
Actually, at Marcello's, he might give you a free taste of the Rye 3, their pick, before you buy. So you get to try it out before you buy it.
So I can say I didn't try this.
Yeah, you can absolutely
Yeah.
say you didn't try
Okay,
this.
okay.
He might remember you because you're, let's face it, difficult to forget. And of course, you heard the voice of Caleb Morse, the rustic renegade. The stories that we have for you this week are just off the charts. We've already covered the fact that the United States Director of National Intelligence, DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, has referred multiple people for criminal investigation, and that the Department of Justice is impaneling full-on juries, right? Grand juries, to make sure, I was losing it for a second there, full-on grand juries for potential prosecution, federal prosecution. So we've covered that. In hour 2, the stories just keep coming. By the way, if you missed those stories in hour 1, find us on our socials, find us on YouTube, anywhere where you get your podcast. You want to make sure that you're not missing this show, and you can go back and catch hour 1. But this one, we need a ring of the bell on this one. We need somebody to ring the bell before we start it. And here's why. Because the conspiracy theorists apparently were right again.
It's like 375 times in a row.
So,
I made that number up.
but you're probably actually low.
Yeah.
You're probably short on this one. I mean, you've got to stop and think. When you go to everything that the conspiracy theorists have been on, COVID was created in China, check mark.
Yeah.
Russia collusion, check mark. Hillary Clinton making up allegations against, check mark. Joe Biden not being mentally sound or check mark. I mean, just keep going. And now this one, this one might be the most frightening of them all to me. Here's why. Especially when you think that we come from and we are based out of a town that statistically is the most Catholic city in the United States, which means it is the most Christian city by percentages anywhere in the U.S. Lafayette, Louisiana is 72% Catholic, which means that when you start going outside of that to just pure Christian, it's in the upper 90s, mid 90s, which is unheard of, which means that we do our best. We don't always succeed because we're always trying to be Catholic, trying to be Christian. But we are always attempting to do the right thing and be charitable to our fellow man. So you got a lot of people who took their driver's license, flipped it over, and signed on the back where it said, I am an organ donor. And the conspiracy theorists told us what? What did they tell us for those here in the bar?
Well, they're going to steal your organs and sell them on the black market.
What do you mean steal?
Steal is correct, but it's while you're still breathing. It's premature.
Premature. That's a good word. I like that word. So what would be premature organ harvesting? How would that work?
Probably somebody who may be lying in a bed after an accident or something like that and has a very, very minute heartbeat, and what somebody might claim is a lack of
Brain dead?
function.
Okay, so maybe they're saying this person's brain dead, but they're not actually dead, which is a slippery slope. A very, very slippery slope. And now we're essentially told, please don't believe us, believe RFK Jr., that the conspiracy theorists were right. That the laws in the United States allowed for organ harvesting before someone was actually clinically dead.
Could this potentially make the government and laws get involved in what is actually constituted as a life? You know, we have this whole argument towards unborn, right? Where some people claim, it's okay because it's not a baby yet, it's not born yet. Could this sway the courts to change a law of the definition of life, or may just forced to make one?
It can go, I guess, deeper and further with it, because not just discounting when life starts, okay, or trying to redefine when life starts. It's when does morality start or stop? When we look at organs, organ harvesting and donating organs for science and medical purposes is very strictly regulated in the United States. There's a lot that goes into it. The doctors themselves are the ones that can determine when those organs can be harvested, right? So if they want your heart, well, they might take that while you're still on your deathbed, not there yet. To go further with it, you go back to 2019, there's another area of, we'll call it organ harvesting, that's not as strictly regulated, and it actually goes back to Chicago. And it goes back to the Biological Resource Center of Illinois. And you know what they got caught with?
What?
Body parts. Because organs are classified differently than body parts. A head was $500, an arm was $700. Some of these body parts that were harvested from living humans. They were harvested from missing persons, and some of them weren't cleared for medical use. What does that mean? It means they had HIV, they had AIDS, they had cancerous cells, and they were organ donors on their license.
So that brings me to a really interesting question, because there was a time when a doctor could make the argument, I don't care what your current viability looks like, and this is a pure hypothetical. I'm not saying that this happened, but I could see the argument being made, well, it's a terminal diagnosis. So at what point does it matter when we take them, whether we take them now or whether we wait, we give you some extra time to ruin the organ and we can do whatever we want to do with it at that point, right?
When that's
It's that slippery slope. It is that slippery moral slope that gets put into play here. And Jonathan, I think you're onto something here for this reason. There are lots of arguments around what constitutes life. And one of the previous arguments was viability outside of another human being. Well, let's take that to an extreme. If I make it to 95 years old and I can breathe on my own, but I can't eat. If I'm laying in a hospital bed and somebody just walks in and pulls my feeding tube, what do they call that?
Murder.
That is murder. I am not viable outside of another human being taking care of me. Well, you have to apply that argument equally to every human life. So at what point does life become life, which means at what point does life cease to be life? I think you are on a really, really interesting point with this conversation with regards to RFK Jr. saying, nope, we are ending the laws that allows for organ harvesting before death. And I understand. The explanation has been given to me that some organs need to be taken while the body is technically still viable. But don't we have the ability to basically keep people alive even when they are brain dead, even when, right? Even when everything stops? At that point, I don't know. It's a big question. I don't know the answer to it. I would love to know the answer to it.
And like you said, it's a very slippery slope because somebody comes up with a terminal cancer. What is the time limit for their organs to be good and viable, right? So they may live another 5 to 10 years with treatment, but is their organs still able to be used outside of their body?
The really interesting implication here, I think, is that RFK Jr. is basically saying doctors have been caught jumping the gun.
And that's what the big thing is we have many doctors. There have been multiple cities, multiple institutions where there are multiple doctors inside of it saying, you know what, we can use this. And they just look at a person like they do when I go hunt a deer. If I have 3 or 4 come out, I choose the one I want to take. And that's what these doctors are doing when they look at human life.
I think it's worse than that. I think it's to the point where it's like doctors look at what used to be a salvage yard for cars. People don't go pull parts out of salvage yards anymore. Mike, is that where you were going?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Unfortunately, I think the medical, it's a business. I mean, it really is. And I was actually going to use that example. When a car is in an accident, basically that car is harvested for everything that's on there: air compressor, tires, rim,
radiator, yep.
Everything. That car is basically stripped down to the frame. It's unfortunate. I remember when my dad passed away, he had an instant heart attack, but he was still living, like when we got into the hospital. And I always have it's always bothered me. But the doctor had came in and we were all sitting. We didn't know how bad it was. But the doctor came in and he said, hey, we have a transplant possibility for your dad on his lenses that are on his eyes. And he's like, would y'all consider that? And we're thinking, man, we don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 15 years old, I'm sorry. 12 years, I'm sorry. And I'm thinking my dad's dying and this doctor's coming in asking for the lenses off of his eyes. And I still remember that. And that's why I kind of always have a grudge towards the medical whole industry. But I kind of think that, man, what you said right there with the car, I mean, when it's an accident, it's still there, but basically it's going to be harvested. Everything's going to be taken off of it. It's a dirty industry, in my opinion.
That's a horrible bedside demeanor too.
Yes.
Especially to just go with that. And look, from somebody who, a lung transplant or something like that to save someone's life, if you're the recipient, it's an amazing thing. But to do that with a 12-year-old boy, a daughter, a wife, that is just, I can't imagine that request.
I can't imagine receiving it. I was 28 when my dad passed. And at 28, I certainly would not have been ready for it and wasn't, much less to be ready for it at 12 to hear that conversation. Mm-hmm. It, to me, is just a fascinating story that it's even brought up, that it's even in the news, that it's even a consideration that, yes, the conspiracy theorists might have been right, and that essentially signing the organ donor line on the back of your driver's license might authorize someone, and we're not obviously villainizing all doctors here, right? But we are not saying that this is happening every single moment of every single day, but we're a messy species.
I mean, there are crematoriums that have given people dry concrete instead of ashes. So there are crappy human beings out there. There are good ones, but there are crappy ones too.
You're not those. We're not those. At least we try not to be those. You know what we do like to do? We like to have a whiskey. We like to solve the problems of the world. We like to come back with more of the stories that somehow just get washed underneath the rug every single week. Why? Because it's your implicit bias. Denzel Perryman, you have been chosen as the topic of this segment of Implicit Bias Radio. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. We are in hour 2. Welcome in to the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair located somewhere in downtown Lafayette, Louisiana. This story I find so fascinating. I'd love to say it's fun. It's not. Because, man, when I tell you why he's the story, especially those of us listening in red states that actually understand what the Second Amendment was all about and the way it was written and why it was written the way it was written, you're going to think this is either insane, didn't happen, or maybe one of the worst cases of law enforcement or laws on the books on the planet. So let me set the table here as I tell you who's now in the crew on this week's episode. So we've got the Rustic Renegade, who obviously is going to chime in on gun laws because that is his thing. We've also got Jonathan Broussard of Industrial Fabrication Services, and sitting in for Grant Galatas, we have Dylan Galatas of William S. Nacall Jewelers here. Now, the reason I brought him in for this segment is because he is absolutely going to know who Perryman is. Denzel Perryman is a defensive end / linebacker for the Los Angeles Chargers. Denzel was on his way to the firing range. Now, first of all, this is really interesting. He got pulled over because his vehicle was, quote, non-compliant with California law. I'm really curious to know how a police officer can look at a vehicle and go, oh, that's non-compliant. It could be an emissions issue. It could be tint on the windows. But even tint on the windows, you think it is, but that's an opinion. It's not fact. You get pulled over for speeding and they check the tint with actually a diffuser for a light, then they've got you. But to simply pull you over for that goes, I don't know. So we don't know exactly what the real reason was that he got pulled over. But he's on his way to the range. And as the story goes, he told the police officers, I'm on my way to the range. I've got firearms in the car. At which point, he gets arrested. Now, Caleb, I'm going to let you give the specifics on this because I know you read this story.
And so what we're talking about is we're going to talk about long guns in the state of California, not handguns, because there's a whole separate rabbit hole for that. But long guns in California, you can't have certain menacing features to include a detachable box magazine that doesn't require a tool to get rid of it. You have something that's called the bullet button, which is a tool to remove your magazine. It cannot have a threaded barrel. It cannot have a compensator or a flash hider. It cannot have a pistol grip. You're not allowed more than 2 menacing features. One of those can be an optic. So your traditional AR-15, or what we now call the MSR, the modern sporting rifle, does not in any way, shape, or form meet California compliance.
And that is basically any
AR variant.
any
there
M4
are ways,
platform.
Yeah, any M4 platform. There are ways to make them California compliant. It's a pain in the butt. But a standard AR is not. If you have it in California, let's say I'm going to assume that whenever he moved to LA, I don't know where he's from originally.
I don't either.
So when he moved to LA, he brought his firearms with him. You cannot do that in California.
He's from Coral Gables, Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if he brought his,
even if the weapon identifies as something else, because I thought that was totally accessible.
you would think in California you were
Right.
okay, but no, they don't believe in identifying anything but a sex. That's the only thing you can change. So if he brought his Florida compliant,
You can
Florida
change
legal-
animals, I believe.
Oh well.
Whole different story.
So if he brought his Florida legal, federally legal firearms into California, right there was his first mistake. I see this very often with people who are getting stationed in California. If you're an Army officer, a Navy officer, Army enlisted, Navy enlisted, Air Force, whatever, and you go there, it is very difficult to bring your firearms. Long guns are one thing, handguns are more difficult because of the nuances. Something as simple as a more than 10-round magazine capacity can make it non-compliant, and that's a felony unless you're a law enforcement officer. And look, I love our police officers. I love to try to support them and work with them, but I also don't believe in making different classes of citizens. I don't believe in making veterans or allowing veterans to have more rights than a citizen. I don't believe in allowing law enforcement or a prior law enforcement to have more rights than another citizen, but California does. And they say if you're a police officer, well, you can have firearms that are non-compliant.
But he's not a police officer.
He's not.
He's an NFL player. So, Dylan, what do you know about this guy? Is this guy even relevant on the field, first of all? Because it was a name that I don't religiously follow the NFL, but it was not a name that I recognized and went, oh, that's a big deal, that guy.
The first couple times you said it, I was like, okay, I've heard that before. But as soon as you said Chargers, I was like, okay. And I mean, yeah, I probably dive too much into fantasy, so I've heard of him several times.
Fantasy
but,
football, just to clarify. Yeah.
Yes. Still trying to decide if I should do this year because I've come in 7th place 3 years in a row. So here's to not making it 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely relevant on the field. Definitely not your biggest superstar, but I knew the name for sure.
Okay. So you have a player from Florida, goes to California. One of the things that would have made the firearm legal in California is if the magazine would have been welded.
Permanently affixed. Not necessarily welded. Permanently affixed is the term they use.
welding would be permanently affixing it, right? That is one of their remedies, correct?
Yeah.
Which, for those who are familiar with how an M4 platform works, I don't want to say it renders the firearm useless.
Very difficult. The human mind will find a way. There's a company out there that if you shotgun, that's if you pull one of your takedown pins and pivot it forward, you have a stripper clip and you can load your magazine vertically. They'll find a way.
Okay.
If you want to sit down and talk about rounds in a magazine curbing crime, mathematically, you're wrong no matter what. And if you want to have that conversation off air, whoever you are, come by the shop and I will show you statistics that prove you wrong because you don't know math. So magazine capacity is completely irrelevant to crime, self-defense, or anything else. So, but yes, that makes it California. That's the first step to being California compliant.
Now, the update to this story is that he has been released from jail. Initially, he was held on some ridiculous, I don't even know if he was held with bond. It might have been without bond.
Probably would have been without one.
Then the update came out that he had been released on his own recognizance, and according to the paperwork, would not face firearms charges or weapons charges in California.
Wasn't that nice?
Well, that brings about a whole different
Pay to play?
conversation. Well, number one, okay, we can debate, are California gun laws stupid?
Yes.
We can debate this. I agree with you, Caleb. Yes, they are. But if the law is the law, how does Denzel Perryman get arrested and then walk out of jail and allegedly, according to the paperwork and the stories that are out there, not face charges?
There's probably some small loophole. Like, look, to tell you how moronic their firearm laws are. Let's say, and I'm going to choose a random model. Let's say you own a Glock 19, okay? If it's a handgun. So on their roster, because long guns can be on there too, on the roster, you can have a black Glock 19 Generation 3. If you have a tan or flat dark earth Glock 19 Generation 3, it's not California compliant.
That the color makes it menacing.
Yes, that's California that said that, not us. Yes.
That is insane. And I did say that as a question. I wasn't saying that as a statement.
No, yeah. That is how ignorant their law is.
Is there the potential that this draws so much attention to the insanity of the gun laws in California that it gets second courts involved into
We've tried that in the past.
constitutional rights?
Unless it gets to the Supreme Court, I don't see it changing because they've done that multiple times. They just actually overturned California mandated you had to have a background check to purchase ammunition, and they just overturned that.
Yeah, but the fact that they let him go so quickly is maybe they don't want to draw attention
to your point, maybe that is the reason why they let him go, because considering even what has been considered the crazy Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is based out of California, even they have started making somewhat logical decisions or decisions that follow precedented law. So the question becomes, was California scared that he might sue and it might end up going all the way to the Supreme Court because he has the means to continue to fight? And if the Supreme Court strikes down that law in California, what other laws are they
The
getting?
house of cards comes falling down.
Because that in and of itself could take down everything.
You know, if anyone listening knows Gavin Newsom, send him this because we'd love to have him talking to us on the show.
Oh, yeah,
That's a great question because according to him, he's a shooter. He likes to shoot skeet and likes to shoot a handgun. Was recently gifted a SIG 365.
Which we can talk about that in bonus content as to what's going on with, because that's the infamous SIG 365, correct?
No, 320 is
The 320 is the infamous.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I had my numbers right, but we can talk about the SIG 320, what that looks like, what Gavin Newsom was gifted. Is it California compliant? Does the magazine, right? There's all kinds of questions there. There's even more questions coming up on our next segment, which I believe, Walker, is the penultimate segment of this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio. We'll also have bonus content. By the way, you can go to Spotify, you can go to Yahoo, or you can go to Apple Podcasts, you can go to Buzzsprout. Subscribe to the bonus content. We're probably going to have multiple segments this week just because there's so much stuff going on, because it's all about your implicit bias. Judge Eileen Cannon doing work on this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio. The fact that this story has disappeared so quickly, gone by the wayside, nobody talking about it 24 hours after it hit the news. It's frightening because the implications are really, really ugly. So Dylan Galatas of William S. Nacall Jewelers sitting in for his dad. Dylan, I'm curious. Do you remember the name Ryan Routh? Ryan Routh? I don't know how to pronounce it. Not written like Baby Ruth, like R-O-U-T-H, Ruth, right? Routh.
Can't say that I do.
Can't say that you do. All right. Jonathan Broussard. If you were hiding on a golf course, does the name Ryan Routh ring any bells?
No.
Caleb Morse.
Was it SKS that he had?
I don't know. I don't know what type of weapon he had.
That's how I remember
attempted
people.
assassin on the golf course?
Yes.
Okay, I remember the story. I don't remember the name.
Okay.
Okay.
I remember people by the firearms they purchase.
Is it ironic that I don't remember the name?
No.
No, because it was swept under the rug. Like it was swooped up and then swaddled up in government, what we'll call government cloud.
It just disappeared into the ether. It turned into Kaiser Soze.
They wanted to vanish, and then all of a sudden now we're getting tidbits, but then it's hidden again.
So Judge Eileen Cannon, you might remember her name. She has done good work on the bench. U.S. judge in Florida. Trump appointee. Well, this case, the Routh case, obviously going before her because the attempted assassination, allegedly, was on a golf course in Florida. So in the last 5 days, it hits the news that some of the evidence that has been presented in this case has been sealed by Judge Cannon. And this is the reason she sealed it. Not a direct quote, doing our best to get it as close as possible. Because the public revelation of this evidence could create issues of national security for the United States of America. Dylan, what does that lead you to believe? I mean, where does your brain go the second you hear somebody say, we're not going to let this out because it could create national security issues?
Right, and I keep thinking you said Trump appointee. I think that's a big thing because, there have been some people that even Trump appointed that he's like, I might have regretted that. But for this judge to feel like that information, like you said, is a national security risk, because like we all know, people are first to hit the panic button nowadays. The second everything gets out, the entire country the whole world knows in under an hour. So that's very frightening. My mind immediately goes to what his motive was and where he was from, possibly like his background maybe being lied about.
Well, he had ties to Ukraine.
Right.
For those who might not remember. There were interesting ties there as to where he was and where he'd spend time. I mean, you had all kinds of interesting stuff. Caleb, what are you thinking while we switch microphones at the bar?
Well, when you look at like Head Canoe, what was his name?
Head Canoe?
Yeah, the shooter.
Ruth? Ryan Ruth?
No,
On the rooftop?
the rooftop guy.
Oh, I don't remember his name.
Head Canoe. So when you look at him, like they've come and they found out, and you have Secret Service AICs that were removed from their job. You have generals that were removed from their job, and they've admitted that. They've admitted that they had these people drop the ball and failed. Were they connected? We don't know. But to say this, we can't release it because it's national security, that tells you someone was connected, some dots connected. There was a straight line to them, and that there were people in positions of authority that shouldn't be there any longer because of what they allowed to happen and what they knew was going to happen.
Jonathan, what are you thinking? Because I've got a little bit of a different thought maybe, or an extension of that thought.
Yeah, my question is in line with you. Like, who are you protecting here, right? We're not outing these people because of someone they might be tied into. And that's kind of scary and sad at the same time.
So is it someone or is it some country? And this is my extension of that.
Or some organization.
So first of all, what this really kind of tells me, number one, is that you've got a conspiracy. He was not a lone shooter. He was not some random crazy guy made it to a golf course. That's number one. Number two, if he's not a lone shooter, there is a conspiracy here. Whether that conspiracy involves someone in the U.S. government or involves someone from another government becomes the really big question. Because let's face it, world wars have started by governments attempting to assassinate leaders of other governments. Caleb?
When you look at it, the Secret Service, they do what's called an advance. And they have satellite offices. We have one in Baton Rouge. And then they work with the FBI. They work with local law enforcement. And they have venues that they go and they do soft advances on to make sure in case the president visits. Then they'll go first. Then the Secret Service comes in about a day prior, sometimes 72 hours prior. Check a location. They do a lockdown, make sure it's prepped and ready. So if we're going to think about a leak, we would naturally think it's at the Secret Service. But if we think about it being a government, a government that we wouldn't want information released from because it would damage national security, well, then we can't think it's Ukraine. We can't think it's Russia. There's really only one other government that I can think of.
Oh, no, there's multiples now.
Well, where we would have close ties to and not want to risk breaking those ties.
Well, let's start to think about, now, we're going to go back to the Trump campaign being spied on. It brings this episode almost completely full circle. So it is illegal for a U.S. entity to spy on a sitting president.
Yes.
But where we have relationships, it is not illegal to ask maybe one of our allies, alleged allies, to spy on a president for us and send that information over. There's your loophole. So my question here is this a government that technically we oppose, or maybe even worse, is this a government we consider friendly?
That's where my brain goes, is a government that we believe to be friendly, because that would be one where we wouldn't want to publicly announce and break ties.
Five Eyes consists of the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and what two other countries? I don't remember. But I mean, if you think about just those three and the types of alleged allies they represent, this is really scary.
I was thinking, could it possibly bring, like you said, if it's a loophole, they're getting them to spy on them? Do you think maybe on some level it was just so complex that it might have brought everybody down with it? Because everyone was involved in some way, because it sounds like here everyone wanted a common goal. And that one common goal was to spy on him. And I mean,
spy on him, and now maybe it's assassinate him. That's
Right.
the big problem. The big problem is if you tie this to a friendly foreign government, now you have someone who's supposed to be our greatest ally who was participating in an alleged assassination attempt.
I would be hard pressed, though, to believe that someone with an SKS is going to try to assassinate a president. Now, that's like using a Caracano, a 6.5 Caracano, try to assassinate a president. Sounds more like internal, in my opinion. But the firearm of choice, everything else, leaves too much to be desired. Spying, I could see that. But I know he wasn't alone. I know this was not a whim.
Well, first of all, how did he know the president was going to be on the golf course before he was there to be there? It's not like he went, let me roll the dice and see if I can magically find. And I believe at the time Trump was still a presidential candidate, correct?
Correct.
But still find a presidential candidate. Let me see if I can roll the dice and find him on the course at this time. Because where Donald Trump was going to be at that time, that is secret information. That is not public information.
It's sensitive information. You have what's called OPSEC, operational
There you go.
security.
Sensitive, yes.
And operational security would be like, hey, I'm going to go buy bread because we're doing a little get-together tomorrow. You're not saying everything out. You're not giving all the information, but you're feeding enough information where someone who's got half a brain can put things together. Do I think this guy just happened to gather information on OPSEC? No. I think that he had close ties with somebody, and somebody was feeding him real information, real time, and giving them direction. Do I think maybe he operated outside of that? Probably. But I think there was a risk this person was willing to take.
The very fact that the media in the United States is not making a bigger deal of this evidence being sealed tells me that Tulsi Gabbard, as we talked about in hour one, and if you missed hour one, find us wherever you get podcasts, Google, Spotify, Yahoo, or Apple Podcasts, right? Go catch hour one. Tells me that Operation Mockingbird still in effect. Obviously, we're not getting paid by them. So we're going to come back. We're going to give you one more story on this week's episode because we have to dive into the Shroud of Turin story. And then in bonus content, we're going to talk about what Operation Mockingbird might have yielded when USAID died. because we are seeing lots and lots and lots of legacy media dead on the vine. And guess what? We're going to address that in bonus content wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe, listen, enjoy your Implicit Bias Radio. Final segment of this week's episode of Implicit Bias. It's a barn burner. You don't want to miss it. But this story kind of wraps things up as we talk about fight or flight and we talk about all the crazy things that we have seen in the last week. Welcome back to the Mr. Lester's Top Secret Podcast, Lair, the TSPL for the uninitiated. Okay. We make no bones about the fact that we are a Christian Catholic show and that we are located in a part of the country where we basically live in Christian Disneyland. 72% Catholic, probably 90+% Christian. It is what it is. But there are certain things that basically no religion can explain. There are a lot of things out there that when you look at it, you're going, we're going to try, but they never quite get there. If you're Catholic, there are Eucharistic miracles all over the planet. Hosts consecrated have fallen to the floor. They have been put and disposed of the way they're supposed to. And when they look into it, there's blood in the water. And when analysis by collegiate professors come back, it comes back as human DNA, only male. I mean, you've got all these things. You've got Our Lady of Las Lajas down in Colombia, where a mother and a child were basically hiding, and they claim to have seen the Virgin Mary. And when they go back, in the wall is the Virgin Mary with baby Jesus.
Multiple feet deep in the stone.
Yeah, they tried to study it. When they tried to figure it out, it's like 4 feet deep into the wall of the cave. I mean, things that cannot be explained. You've got Our Lady of Fatima, right? You've got Medjugorje. I mean, you've got all these different miracles that just cannot be explained. And then there's the one that seems to attract maybe the most attention because it's probably the most visible, and it is the Shroud of Turin. For those who don't know what the Shroud of Turin is, the Shroud of Turin is a cloth approximately 13 to 14 feet long that has on it the image of the front of a man who was crucified, and on the back, the image of the back of a man who was crucified. The wounds on that man are in his wrists, in his feet, and in his side. And the shroud, to this day, cannot be explained. They have attempted to carbon date it. Now, over the centuries, the shroud was attempted to be repaired. When they carbon dated it, they carbon dated a piece of it that was a repair piece. So it came back to the Middle Ages. But guess what? Modern scientists, in their brilliance, still to this day, cannot, in any way, shape, or form, replicate how that image got there. But the New York Post publishes a story about some Yahoo who claims, oh yeah, now we know it came from the Middle Ages. Go ahead, Caleb.
Okay, so in the article, he claimed that's from the Middle Ages and it's artwork, not a deceased body. And depending on what you believe, it makes sense. Well, if there's a body that's wrapped in cloth, after so many days, it would swell. The blood, the markings would be disproportionate and not clean and imprinted. If you believe in the resurrection, the body was wrapped, it was placed in the tomb, and then where did he go?
On the third day, he rose again.
But during those 3 days, where did he go?
He went to purgatory.
He went down and went to Sheol and broke open the gates.
Yes.
And told those that were stuck there and created heaven, essentially. So where's the body go then? The body went through the process.
I'm about to say the body went with him.
Yeah, the body went with him.
Because he had not ascended at that point.
Correct. So if that's the case, there would be no swelling, there would be no disfiguring, there would be no rigor mortis. Because when the body came back and rose on the third day, the shroud laid there as it was.
So I'm curious at the bar. Before you even heard anything of this article, what'd you think of the Shroud of Turin? Had you heard of it? Did you have thoughts on it? What'd you believe about it?
I mean, this is, to me, is something that you don't question. It's been proven that is tortured blood on the shroud.
Yes, they have blood. They have tested
Correct.
where the wounds are, and it has come back as blood. That is correct.
Why even question this? Is the New York Post is looking for views, and I don't really understand where they're trying to go with this.
So I firmly believe that the way the devil works is the devil works the best through doubt. The devil works the best by making you second guess what your soul and spirit knows. And when he can do that, he breaks faith.
Want to affirm that? What's the biggest enemy of faith?
Fear.
Doubt and fear. Because if you can erode the faith, and it's through faith that we're saved, then you break apart the whole of what is our religion, what is our faith, what is our purpose, and you can erode away at it. And I'm sure there are people who are going to read this and will hear this and then go and look and research and say, oh, well, I see that. But it depends on what you believe, because I do firmly believe the body was not there.
Even down to the fact that they have tried for decades to replicate the artistic process if this was a piece of art, and they can't do it. Dylan, I'm curious as to your thoughts before this article came out, and now maybe what you think of the article.
The first time I ever heard of the Shroud, I'll never forget it. It was 6th grade, 2009, Saints Super Bowl, all that. But I will never forget that PowerPoint. It just, still to this day, I can remember every slide. It blew my mind. And the key detail I remember was one of the guys that was arguing for it obviously said that because of the hole in the wrist, that there's a certain nerve, forgive me, I don't know which one, but if you were to
Your
get
girlfriend
pierced right
knows.
there.
It's okay.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. I need a Haley help call if that's possible. But it will make your thumb fold over if that nerve is pinched. And they said, if this thing is as old as it is, and it is, how would they have known that all the way back then? Obviously, the Romans, the masters of torture, they knew the most heinous ways to deal with you as a criminal, but how would they know that? There's just so many key details, like the tortured blood. Like you said, every time that they study Eucharist that is either disposed of properly or, someone takes it, that kind of thing. It all comes back to you can't explain it.
Here's the really interesting part of the article to me. And it leads me down this path. If you are seeking truth and you leave your mind open, you'll find truth. If you are seeking a story instead of the story, you're going to find whatever you're looking for. And what the author of the study, so the person who wrote the article for the New York Post, wrote it about a study that this guy did. This guy wrapped everything through multiple sources of video imaging and tried to replicate it, doing this, and was finally able to replicate it and said, oh, it's art now. I mean, basically, he ran it through so many processes. The only thing that he was going to conclude was it's fake. In other words, his conclusion was made up before he even really looked at all of the facts. If you back up and you look at all the facts, it's really difficult to not believe that the Shroud of Turin is authentic. It's really difficult to doubt when you look at, to your point, Dylan, the details, the thumb, to your point, Mike, the tortured blood, the image that cannot be replicated. And to this day, they can't even figure out, they suspect that it was energy that created the image on the cloth. Wait, but was sun energy? Sunlight? Was it like porch tea? I mean, how did they do this? No, they weren't doing this with porch tea 2,000 years ago. They simply weren't. And I'm open, if it can be proven that it's not. But if you really go dig and you go look at all the facts, it's difficult not to believe. Which to me brings up the big question. Why now? Why write this story? Why do this study now? It's not like this hasn't been done over and over and over and over and over again. Why now?
Well, I mean, wasn't a seal just broken? Wasn't we look at the end of times, everything else, and look where we are and when we are, we don't really know, because the Bible tells us we do not know the hour nor the day. But we do know that things are occurring every day that draw us closer to the second coming. So, no matter how you look at it, the moment he died to today, to tomorrow, to whenever it is, we're getting closer. To me, it makes sense to try to instill doubt at any moment whenever they can. Because that's when you can erode it. That's when you can break it down. That's whenever the deceiver has another chance to prolong his reign over this earth.
I'm going to tell you, Caleb, as we wrap this up, I think you're exactly right. I think the reason they do it now is because of people that are listening to this show, people who see it, people who have become awake to all the deception, people who have become awake to all of the doubt that has been forced, to all of the lies that have been told, in one effort to keep the truth from your implicit bias. Find us on bonus content. We love to have you on Google, Apple, Spotify podcasts. We'd love for you to listen because we're going to have tons of fun bonus content this week. And if not, we'll see you in 7 for more of your Implicit Bias Radio.